What's up? What's up? Welcome into the award-winning Orange Zone podcast. A reminder, you can find every episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you want to listen. You can also find every episode on our Orange Zone YouTube page as we continue to chase 1,000. We will get there. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed already. So please do, if you haven't done so already, like and subscribe so we can keep pushing out this Orange Zone content. I'm Tommy Sladek. This is Ashley Wenskoski. We have Samantha Croston. We have Rachel Culver on the producer mic. Finally, Rachel is back to join us, so we will be hearing her voice and her takes. We are getting into, it's all about LAX right now. We are deep into the NCAA tournament. Both the SU men and SU women are moving on. That's fun. We enjoy being able to talk about wins, and we also have a little bit of a note at the end on a former SU women's basketball star that has made a WNBA roster. So let me open it up to you guys. Beautiful day outside here in Central New York. How are the vibes right now?
Vibes are good. Went to the Syracuse Crunch this morning. They're moving on as well.
Love that.
Good morning.
Yeah, I would have to say vibes are good as well. I feel like there's always something to complain about, like the 4 shots in the coffee instead of 1 from earlier.
give the listeners the lowdown on this, because I do feel Sam
I honestly, listen, end of the day, before I say this, let me preface this by saying this is not day ruining. I'm a big believer in bad moments, no bad days.
Ooh.
But this was a bad moment. That's my one-liner for the day. Just figured I'd get it out of the way early. But I'm sure that everyone can relate to this at some point in their lives, whether you're a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts person. You go through the drive-thru and you kind of know how sweet you like your coffee. And for me, I like it on the less sweet side by Dunkin' standards, which, as we all know, are insane. So I'm like, I'll take 1 pump of each. And I didn't realize until I got out of the drive-thru, they gave me 4 of each. Now we're talking about, and it's 2 different flavors. We're talking about 8 shots of who knows what. I'm like, this is undrinkable.
Yeah.
And it's just an upsetting situation, a waste of 10 minutes, a waste of $5. Either way, I mean, we're moving on. And will I be going back later to again pledge my loyalty to Dunkin' and get a less sweet coffee? I probably will.
Today.
I probably will.
Wow.
I probably will. I really wanted that iced coffee. And I love me some Dunkin'. So let us know in the comments, Dunkin' or Starbucks. Kind of interested to see where our fans are on that debate. Or do you just make your own coffee? That's fine too.
Maybe they're anti-coffee. But yeah, Dunkin' can be like the old pump shoes that we had in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like that's them. Like you're like one little thing of hazelnut and they're like,
yeah, they're pump happy.
It's not necessary. Pump happy.
Yeah, they are. And that's why I normally go black. Because I'm afraid of the doors I can open when I do ask for a flavor.
And you said this to me, or before we even started this episode. You're like, listen, you can always add more, but you can't take away less. Somewhere in there is a lesson, okay? I don't know what the lesson is, but I feel like that pertains to life too, man. It was too much, and we couldn't come back from it. It's all good. I'm moving on.
You got it off your chest.
Yep.
We're feeling better.
Thank you guys for letting me share that.
Yeah, happy you had that. Rachel, let's bring you in. The listeners haven't heard or seen you in a hot minute, and you put down some notes for us. So the men beat Towson on Sunday 20-15. Then you also had the SU women beating Stony Brook 15-10. What out of your notes stuck out to you about these 2 games before we look ahead to Denver and Yale?
Yeah, so I actually watched I didn't get a chance to watch the women's game, but I did watch the men's game. And what stuck out to me was John Mullen at the face-off during that men's game. When he scored in that third quarter, it felt like a massive momentum shift when he took off from half field. And it was so cool to just see the game progress as it did after that. So that was my biggest thing that stuck out to me during that game.
I love seeing the face-off guys being able to score. Because Cone did it too. And there's nothing that gets the crowd more into it than those type of moments because they're few and far between sometimes.
100%. I mean this genuinely. My favorite part of that entire game was having Drew Carter on the call. That dude is just a poet. Like he really made it so fun to watch. But I mean, yeah, I mean to see all of the different, because for a while Cone was the guy, but to see that someone else can step in and it was just goal after goal after goal in that third quarter. And it was too hard for Towson to come back from. I was hearing in the press conference afterwards that they were calling it a complete game, and that's exactly what it felt like to me. Will Marks still a little bit of a slow start there, so you want to see him kind of building on that momentum as you are gearing up to face tougher opponents. But I think we all knew going into this. I mean, your score prediction from last week was definitely the closest. But
What did I say? I don't even
You were
remember.
the only one who thought they were going to win. So.
And you kind of said they would
Oh,
blow,
right.
they would blow them
Yeah,
out.
I remember
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, Tommy, if you want to get that crown over there in the corner.
Right?
go ahead.
Yeah, I should get that crown. Feels good. But we said we needed to balance it out, which I think is healthy when we are a balanced table.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally. I also think to what you were talking about, the face-off is like the biggest difference in this team compared to last year. They could not win a face-off last year. It was such a struggle for them all year. And now that they have Mason Cone and Johnny Mullen, they have two really good options. Then they even score. Like, that is just, I think, the biggest difference in this team as a whole. I don't know the exact stats compared to last year, but it's certainly made a world of a difference for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we just knew. Like, I really believed coming into this game that it wasn't going to be a cakewalk, and I don't think it was. I think that you saw how close this game was. It was back and forth. Like, I think in the first half, something along the lines of 8 lead changes and 8 ties. I mean, it was really, really back and forth, and the only reason it got out of hand is because Syracuse was truly able to just put their foot on the gas and go. And it goes back to what we were saying last week, where if this is a team where they're truly operating on all cylinders, it's going to be tough for even the best defenses in the country. And Towson was one of those teams who had really held opponents all year long to guard them. It's just too tough when there's so many different threats who you got to pay attention to, including their face-off guys.
Third quarter clearly the biggest time for them, but it was a tale of two halves, which I know it's cliche at this point. We say it all the time, but it's a big part of the stories of a lot of games. And at the start, I mean, it wasn't just a Will Mark issue. There were 0 saves in the first quarter. 0.
That's a crazy
Every time
stat.
there was a shot on goal, it was going into the back of the net. So they were back and forth there. You could tell the crowd was just on edge, being like, oh boy, what's going on here? Because Will just, again, did not look like himself.
Nope.
Right before halftime, he gets a save. And I think that might have been one of the saviors in terms of what he was able to do in the second half. Was it his perfect game? No. Was it his best game? No. But there was a little bit of a change there. But it's been tough for the kid. You can tell.
And by the way, I also just want to add that I know that there has been some conversation about, okay, this team works better as a unit and there's not one specific star. But I have to say that I feel like Joey Spallina, by maybe as soon as next year, is really going to be the guy who you're looking for and who you have to stay on the lookout for. And this game was a perfect example of that. I really feel like in the most high-pressure moments, this is the dude who is just crushing it. And we see now he has the most points by a sophomore at SU, 88 in a single season. He surpassed current head coach Gary Gait, who previously held the record at 87. Like, these are big numbers for a kid who's a sophomore. They really are.
And he speaks like an upperclassman too, even after the game, and he said it. He's like, he's like, I'm happy we had this game because it showed us that the Jets can't be turned on in the third quarter, especially against Denver. Like they'll put up 22 if they need to. And so he was very, he's just mature in the way he speaks about it. You can tell he has a more of a leadership role, and there's been such a jump for him, I think, from freshman to sophomore year, and he's right, because they can't get away with that again. Absolutely not.
Totally. What I thought was most impressive about that rally in the third quarter was that all 9 of those goals, right, they went on a 9-1 run, were scored by 9 different players. And, like, if that doesn't show you, we've been talking about it all year, like how multifaceted their offense is, how many different threats they have to score, that is the stat, that, like, 9 different goals scored by 9 different players. That's crazy to me.
I mean, that is hard to believe.
Yeah.
Like, that is incomprehensible. Like, the fact that there are so many people who are playing a role in that. And honestly, even just the pace. And again, that does go back to the face-off guys who you've been seeing, because Mullen, right as he gets that ball, he's darting off the line. No one's picking him up. And the fact that he is always someone who you need to think about, the fact that he's not immediately looking to pass it, but he's looking to go to goal, it makes it a tough situation for these defenders to figure out who's sliding. It's going to make them have to communicate more. And inevitably, when you do slide to Mullen, now you have these dudes down low who end up being open, and it's a tough situation when Syracuse is in fast break mode to stop them.
I heard Finn Thompson was on ESPN Radio Syracuse this morning, and I was listening to his interview, and that was a moment I had where I was just like, whoa. Like, he's had like 12 goals, I think, in the last 6 games, and I was like, whoa, like Finn Thompson, he's like 8th in my mind of like people who I think of that are threats to score, but like he's been having like such a great last few games and like such a great stretch, and that I think just shows how deep they are when someone who is such a major threat, I'm like, wow, like I haven't even thought about him. You know what I mean?
It does make me wonder, I I think it's fair to say that Joey will be the number one on the attack, but I don't foresee it being the Joey show. Just based on what we're seeing out there. I think the talent is so deep, and I think it creates such an issue for these defenses when they have to think about literally everyone can go and score and make the most of it. And does this surprise you guys at all? It was a first-round sweep for the seeded teams, all 8-1. Did that surprise you or not too surprised?
I don't think that surprises me just because all 8 of those teams were so strong. But it's an interesting stat that I have here. The last time that happened, Syracuse won the national championship.
That was in 2004.
20 years ago, 2004,
Yeah.
I think.
How about that?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Notre Dame had a little bit of a scare in the first half of that game this weekend, but they survived.
I mean, in looking at all of the opponents, I like a part of me wanted to say, yes, that does surprise me just because how could it be every single game? But I don't know. I mean, you could definitely say that the top 2 teams or 3 teams in this field are relatively even, or anyone has a chance to win that. And then I would say even all of the teams who are seeded, you can't rule anyone out. But in looking at some of these scores, I mean, Duke, Utah, there's no chance that Duke is getting kicked out there. Maryland, Princeton, I don't see it. Johns Hopkins, Lehigh, maybe, and that one was 13-10. But a lot of these weren't even close. So no, I'm gonna go with no. That doesn't surprise me, but maybe just I would have expected maybe one, and I thought that one maybe actually could have been Towson Syracuse, depending on what Syracuse was able to bring to the table. I mean, still the fact that Towson put up 15, it felt like a blowout towards the end, but it really wasn't. Like, it actually ended up being relatively close. So
I can touch on that a little bit. Like, there was a possession where they just kind of ran the clock out. So there was a point where Syracuse stopped scoring, but there was that 3 or 4 goals that, I mean, end of the day, the score looks different because of that, right?
Yep.
End of the day, they put up 20 points on the best scoring defense in the country Towson had coming into that game.
Like that is special. And I know we'll get to it, but it's like you could kind of say the same thing about the women's side. Like Stony Brook, again, second scoring defense in the nation, and Syracuse just absolutely lights them up. So we'll get to it, but I think the big takeaway from both sides is Syracuse offense, good things are happening on both sides.
It's also the first time they put up 20 since the win over Vermont earlier in the season.
That's
so
a
to
good
see the
point.
offense rolling like that is a good sign going forward.
Yeah, and Syracuse, the first NCAA tournament win since all the way back in 2017. That was hard for me to believe when I saw that, because that is just a drought of epic proportions. In terms of Syracuse lacrosse and the standard that they have, like, that was crazy that it's been 7 years. But finally got it under Gary Gate, and it was good to see.
In my mind, I would think that it's safe to say, to an extent, that Syracuse lacrosse is back. It's just a matter of how back are they? Like, how deep
on
can
the
we
we're so back meter?
On the we're so back scale, like we need to kind of figure out where we're gonna land on that. And these next few games are going to show that, But I wouldn't. If you would have told me right before the tournament even started, I would have honestly told you that there's a 50% chance that they get knocked out in the first round, but there's also a 50% chance that they make a super deep run. I really didn't know what to expect, and I truly thought it could have went either way.
They make it to Philly Memorial Day weekend back.
So bad.
Hashtag,
we are so bad.
Hashtag back. Let's talk about this next game. Let's keep it moving forward. Let's look ahead. They're taking on Denver. Denver's the 5. Syracuse is the 4. This is going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a great game. So Denver took down Michigan over the weekend in the first round, and they came out to a 7-1 lead. They can start hot, and it's exactly what Syracuse can't have happen. I mean, if they want to go toe-for-toe with them, fine, but this is the Pioneers are coming to play. Something that immediately sticks out to me, and being we're in Central New York, is, and this is going to be in both games, is we have Central New York representation. So Jake Edinger, grad student over there at Denver, star at Tully, and then you also have Dan Anderson, who is at CBA, and he was a football, what was he in? Football, lacrosse, basketball. He did it all. And so these guys are going to be fun to watch. I think one's a short stick defensive midi, another one's a midi. But Denver's an interesting school, right? Because it's way out there. It's west. It's not one of these northeast hubs, but they've built a pretty great program under Coach Tierney.
Yeah, this is the word that comes to mind when I think about Denver is physical. I encourage anyone who's trying to just get to learn more about this team to look up the celebration that they had after they won against Michigan. it is a celebration, and there are players legitimately punching each other in the face because they're so joyful. That's scary. Like, that's the kind of team that you're going up against, is a team that is just, I mean, monsters. Like, think of the meanest dog that you've ever met. Like, those are the kinds of players that they're going to be going up against. This is a team that just takes no prisoners. You're going to see a lot of physicality out there, and Syracuse has to be ready to go up against that. It's going to be tough to score on them. Not necessarily because, listen, they have a great defense, but it's just when you're playing against such physical players like that, now your creativity has the potential to be stifled. So we'll just have to see about all that. But do I think Syracuse can win this game? Absolutely. But again, it's going to be one of those things where it has to be an operating on all cylinders kind of effect, and that will be more true the deeper that they get into this tournament.
Yeah, I almost think, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I almost feel like it's as even as a matchup as they could have gotten in the quarterfinals, right? 4 seed, 5 seed, two kind of similar offenses in a lot of ways. It's a game of runs. We'll see who comes out on top in the game of runs. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one to watch Sunday at noon, coincidentally, in Towson, Maryland. So Towson would have gotten to play at home. That's funny.
Yeah, how about that? Towson continues to stay a part of the story. So Syracuse is 4-0 against them all time. They visited Denver in 2002. The last time they played was in 2013 in the national semis in Philly. Everything's kind of matching up. Syracuse, I'm reading now, scored twice in the final minute to earn a 1-goal win, 9-8 to advance to the national championship game against Duke.
Right. And listen, I appreciate the fact that they're undefeated against Denver, but also 2013, is 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, this team is just a totally different team. I feel like all of that goes out the window in this game, but also I kind of like the fact that this is a team that they haven't seen in that long. I think that's actually just good for the game and good for the fans to be seeing these matchups that you wouldn't often see.
Totally good for the game. I don't know if it's good in terms of knowing the opponent, but listen, they had a week. I mean, I'm sure they studied up and watched some film and got ready for it.
And
looking forward to it.
I mean, the one thing I always think is as unfamiliar as Syracuse is with Denver's team, the same thing could be said about Denver for Syracuse,
Totally.
So it is definitely a matter of some extra scouting, figuring out exactly who you need to match up against and how you're going to play against them defensively. But that responsibility falls on both sides. So I don't feel that that's necessarily an advantage or a disadvantage. It's just different. It's a different kind of matchup.
ESPNU, noon Sunday, score predictions. Hit me with them.
I'm thinking that this is truly and legitimately close the whole way through. And I'm thinking that this is a more low-scoring game than the 20-15 game that we saw the last time around. I'm going to go, I'll bet on Syracuse, but I feel like because I do that means they're going to lose, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'll go Syracuse 11-10. No overtime, but it comes down to a game-winning goal right at the end of the game.
I'm going to go 13-10 Syracuse. I feel a little more confident, but I feel like it'll be close, and I feel like you said, more of a low-scoring affair than last week.
All right. Well, I have to flip up the mojo then.
Oh,
I'm going to go Denver 9, Syracuse 8.
That means
and
they're
it's
going to lose.
I know, we're screwed.
Well, no. They would lose if I said they would win. And that's not all the juju, but I don't
know. You're 1-0 in our predictions, bro.
Crap. Well, I can't do that to them.
No,
That's
do
messed
it.
up.
You have to.
Wielding this power is not something I wanted.
You didn't ask for it.
I had to. I have to flip up the table. We can't go. If we go 3-0, same team, it's a death wish.
Yeah, you have to.
All right, Denver 9, Syracuse 8. It's a flip-flop from 2013.
Okay.
Denver gets the advantage.
Great.
Women's game. That's going down Thursday. So by the time people are listening to this, whether it's late Tuesday night, I'll be working hard to get it out as quickly as possible, or Wednesday, Sam's going to be heading over there to the Dome because SU gets another home game as they take on Yale. Syracuse, the 3 seed, Yale, the 6 seed. It's a 2:30 start Thursday afternoon. Not exactly the dream scenario for ticket sales, but hopefully we get some Orange fans out there that want to see this team.
At all.
Not the best, but to get here was a fun game in front of a packed SU soccer stadium. So graduation was happening Sunday morning, and so the women's game was played outside. Luckily, it ended up being a really beautiful day for the most part, and it was a fun one with Stony Brook. Very back and forth. Syracuse pulls it out in the end, 15-10, and the big thing that sticks out right away, Kate Mashewski. Unbelievable. Set a school record with 20 draw controls. And she is so good at it that there are complaints made by the other teams throughout the season. Joe Spallina in the post-game press conference says there's something wrong here. He's like, it's in her stick before they're even letting go of it. Kayla Trainer came in quickly, put that door closed. It was like, no, she's doing this well because it's the best. She's like, we've had stick checks in the past. But have you seen or heard of anything like this?
I too have heard complaints specifically. I've been hearing just in the Stony Brook conversation, obviously because they've been up here and that's been the matchup and whatnot. I have a lot of my Mount Sinai and Long Island people down there, and I definitely had some people who are very immersed in the game who are actually falling back on there's something that she's doing that's illegal. She's ripping it too early. But in my mind, I mean, Syracuse player or not, I'm thinking if she's doing something illegal and she's doing it consistently, surely the referees would see it and no one's calling anything. So let's just grow up. Sorry. What do you want me to say? If there was something that was going on and it honestly was a consistent thing, somebody would have noticed it by now, and nobody has noticed it. I think that she's just talented. And I think part of the reason why you're hearing those complaints, maybe more than you would with somebody else, is because specifically with Wenskoski, she pulls it to herself. So she's not there. There are people around the circle there for her and waiting. And a lot of teams, for example, Stony Brook's a perfect example of that. There's a girl who takes the draw control named Charlotte Verholst. Yeah. But Ellie Macera is picking up a million draws a game because she's on the circle and she's always in the right place, and Verholst pulls it to her. But with Wenskoski, I mean, it is up in the air for a split second and she's pulling it right out because she's tall as can be and they're off and running. But I think that's just the way that she's been training. That's what she's taught to do, and it works for her. She's just a one-woman show up there.
Yeah, and she was good before, right? She was hurt last year, out all year with, was it an ACL injury?
ACL, I believe, and she had made a mention of how that had happened, I believe, in middle school or high school for her. So she's been through the ringer with those.
Yeah, but she's just been so dominant this year, right? You never know if someone's going to come back from an ACL, but this year, I mean, she has just been nonstop, unstoppable.
And Alyssa Murray was talking about that on the broadcast. I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective because she even was talking about her own experiences going through an injury and just how hard it is to come back from that. She's like, I felt like I was slow as I could be for a year, and then I finally just turned on the jets and totally felt like myself again. I mean, it's one thing to be able to be that good once, but to be able to come back from an injury and do that again. I mean, you could say the same thing in any sport. I feel like we talk about that with Edwin Diaz on the Mets, like an injury, and now how is he coming back this year? Like it means a lot, I think, to be able to come back even stronger after an injury, and she has proven that game in and game out.
Shameless plug there. Why am I a Mets fan?
If you were wondering, we actually do have a podcast that just came out. We're talking about the Mets.
In case you didn't know, give us a listen.
It's called Why Am I a Mets Fan?
Yep.
You can find us at @WhyMetsPod on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have just a wicked social media intern who has been absolutely crushing it. Dan, his name's Intern Dan. He's at the Mets game today, by the way.
Love that.
Ashley said to him, hey, can you find Mr. Met? Maybe you can take a picture with Mr. Met and have him hold up
30 minutes later, this kid
podcast.
has Mr. Met with I was like, Dan.
Less than an hour. The dude has the photo. I'm like,
wow.
How did you do that?
Anyway, I digress. Even if you don't like the Mets and you just like baseball.
If you hate the Mets, just come watch.
And you're just like into the NL East. I feel like we touch on a lot of topics that are just baseball friendly. So
Ashley and Sam aren't really sure why they're Mets fans. Breaking news.
We would answer the question, but we still don't know. Anyway.
When the question gets answered, that's when the podcast is over.
True.
And that'll happen.
Exactly right. That's so true.
And that'll happen maybe never.
Yep.
Hopefully it keeps going on forever. And also, sorry to Kate. I pronounce her last name wrong all the time.
That's okay.
The W is something I cannot shake. It's been years now, and I can't shake the W.
And sometimes I do see like the SIDs, or sometimes they'll be saying shoe, but all I'm telling you is on every broadcast, I even remember asking Sydney Parecka, the assistant from each few years ago. I'm pretty sure if you asked her, she would say Wenskoski.
I think it's
but we should figure that out to be absolutely certain. But I think
we'll
it's
just say we'll say it super fast, so no one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had those moments. Kate, just keep it in with the hard Kate, and then you move forward.
Yeah. We'll get it right, though. We'll get it right, promise.
Yes. And then also Emma Tyrell doing her thing, 5 goals. And I want to say, like, Emma and then who else was up there? Delaney Schweitzer and Kate were at the podium with Kayla Trainer and her niece on Sunday. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, and you could feel it based on the way the players answered their questions, is Kayla said, he goes, this group really handles hard coaching, tough coaching. She goes, they handle that, they absorb it, and it makes them better. And she goes, they are very, very locked in on that goal. And I think that starts with the people up at the top. I think that starts with the Emma Ward, Emma Tyrell, and you can feel that they're intimidating in a good way. Like they are very focused and hungry on what they want.
Yeah, if there is a team that's like extra motivated, I feel like in women's lacrosse this season, it is Syracuse. Like they've had those Boston College losses. They've had, they just haven't been able to get over that hump and win that national championship. And so I think that really drives them. And there's a lot of girls on this team that have been around for some of those tough losses in the last few years. You know what I mean? So motivation it's there.
I mean, it's like I'm smirking because it's pent up energy, right?
Yeah.
It's a team that has always been at the top of the field, but has never been at the top of the field.
Yeah.
Why? Like, who wouldn't be pissed off? But it's also so funny watching the next game. They have this nice little dichotomy going on of all of the players on the field being really serious and stoic. I don't know why I decided to use the word dichotomy, but I think it's going to work. Go away, Rachel. Mute her mic.
She's the one in charge of that.
Get out.
But if you look on the sideline, it's okay to use big words. Like, honest, come at me in the comments if you want. Sorry. But
I ain't
if
hating. It just caught me off guard.
Everyone hears Rachel whispering though, right? It's not just
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I thought it was you at first. And I was like,
Well,
hello.
I did whisper it at first. I think I cued the whispering.
Can I say my point?
Yes.
So then there's also the players on the sidelines who are having the time of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
The celebrations.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was creative. I don't know if you guys saw this one. There was one celebration where they had this is easily the best one of the day. They had a white piece of paper and it said DVD on it. So then there were two people who were doing like a full square,
That's
like
great.
a TV, and they were just putting the DV like up and down, bouncing
Trying
all
to hit the
around.
corner.
Incredible.
I'm like,
That's great.
just iconic. And I kind of like that. You have some people who are making it a little bit lighter. You have some people who are all serious and all business. Like that, it's good to have a mix of that as you get, deeper into this, because I know everybody has their goal and it's important to stay focused, but it's also important to have fun and enjoy and live that moment,
And to have
live in that moment and to have that dichotomy. I know. I'm so sick of this girl, honestly.
This is like
What
ASMR.
prompted that?
Well,
have you been dropping the dichotomy lately
it's
in
not
life?
it's not a phrase like howdy or anything like that. I feel like I'm getting pressed a lot this episode. But I thought dichotomy, like, unless I'm wrong, I really thought that meant like you kind of have two separate sort of individual things going on at the same time.
You used it correctly.
I
So,
Yeah.
so then what's the problem?
It's in the word, the die.
I don't even know
I
what
feel like
dichotomy
looking at
means,
Calvin,
to be
throwing up
honest
both of
with
my
you.
middle fingers and getting that on the promo.
I think you nailed it. It's a division
won't,
or
though.
contrast between two things that are represented as being opposed or entirely different.
I mean, I bodied
Damn.
that.
You
I
nailed that.
slammed that word to the ground.
I just think I don't think I've seen or maybe even heard that word more than 5 times other than like my vocab book, like
Especially
junior
not out of your
high
mouth.
school. Hey, I have good vocabulary.
Silence her.
I just choose to not use it. I
See-
got big words up in this brain.
See, you guys
got a
were
big
you guys were
brain.
all, we gotta get you back on the mic, we gotta get you back on camera, and this is what happens
This
when
might have
that
been a
happens.
mistake. I might need to make sure that mic gets lost.
I'm gonna start whipping out dichotomy just in like conversation.
It's a great word.
It is a great
I mean,
word.
It
Feel free to
hits
also
hard.
use dichotomous. I believe that's
that
another
a word?
I really think so. I think dichotomous
Sounds like some
is.
Colgate thing.
Sounds like hippopotamus.
Why was I thinking the exact same thing? No, dichotomy. Sorry.
No, that's
That's what you said.
Oh, that's.
All right. Anyway,
Let's move on.
Wait, I need to know.
we
if
just
that-
lost every single listener
all right.
in the last.
Thank you
3
for everyone
minutes.
staying on. I know. Tony, Cuse Waterboy, he drives the rig all day. I know he's at least the last thing to this point. So Tony,
I'm sorry.
thanks for
Dichotomous
holding
is a
on.
word. Dichotomous is a word. Do not come at me in the comments. There it is.
I don't think that was
Dichotomous
ever
or
argued.
dichotomy
Hippopotamus.
Okay.
or hippopotamus
All
or
right.
hippopotamy. Sorry.
Sorry.
Are we done? Are we done? Are we moving on? All right, let's move on. Syracuse and Yale. It's going down Thursday. The Bulldogs have already won 2 games. So they had to play in that opening first round. And in the women's side, it's the first round. The second round, they've already played. And then quarterfinals happening on Thursday. It's at 2:30. The Ivies had some representation, 2 teams in it. And end of the day, I feel pretty good about this game. I really do.
Yeah.
That's my gut. That's my gut feeling. It's my gut feeling.
I feel like this is the I want to confidently say this is either out of the 4 games being played, this is either the best matchup or maybe the second best matchup. I mean,
what takes the cake?
I think, all right, I'm going to just whip up my entire full bracket here if everyone could just bear with me, because I think that this is important. Okay, so you have Northwestern and Penn. I feel like for Northwestern, as good as they are, that also, I'm not going to say will be a walk in the park, but I think they'll do okay. But still, Penn is a team that has been great. What is it? The dichotomy?
Sorry. No, I'm just thinking about you saying. All right, I can't believe I brought it back up, but I can't believe that you said it like it was a brand new word, like it wasn't the word we had already been talking about. You're like, wait, it's dichotomy. I was like, wait.
I know, because then but honestly,
I don't know if I want to hear that word ever again.
But honestly, I just wanted to make sure. Once I said dichotomous, I'm like, now I'm really losing all my street cred if that's not a real word, and I was right. So I just feel like I feel like on the dichotomy streets,
It's
I'm a hero.
What is a dichotomy street?
I just made that up.
All right, back in.
So we're jumping back in. And the other thing is, so like, how about this? Okay, Maryland is a 4 seed, Syracuse is a 3 seed, but Syracuse gets to face Yale. Maryland is going up against Florida, who right now in this exact moment is on a 19-game winning streak. That is the highest in the entire country. That's the longest winning streak in the entire country. Like, that's a tough draw in my opinion. Even though it's a lower seed, I would so much prefer Syracuse going up against Yale, who's seeded, than Florida, who's unseeded. I really would. I think that would be a really tough matchup. Or even, how about this? Notre Dame, 7 seed, going up against Michigan. Or no, I'm sorry, Michigan beat Notre Dame, the 7 seed. So now Boston College goes up against Michigan. Like, that would make me feel nervous. Notre Dame is the 7 seed. They're an ACC team and a good ACC team, and Michigan takes them down to the wire and beats them. If I'm Boston College, I'm feeling a little bit nervous about that. So yeah, long story long, I do think that Syracuse got a good matchup. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I think the stat of the week, by the way, shout out to John Stark, the Syracuse men's lacrosse SID, because he tweeted this.
He's awesome.
Now I've been saying it every day ever since.
John.
He rocks. Syracuse, one of 2 schools to have both lacrosse teams, men's and women's, in the quarterfinals. It's Syracuse and Maryland, and I just think that shows the state of both of these programs that we've been talking about all year. So, yeah.
Gotta love it. And we also have 2 local representation of 2 seniors, actually. Anna Vetch, Marcellus, senior Medi. And we also have Anna Dieroff of JD, Fayetteville, New York native. She's a defender. So gotta love it. Seeing why lacrosse is everywhere. Section 3 till we die. There we go. Those are our 2 games. Last note before we sign off, Dyaisha Fair officially a part of this Las Vegas Aces roster. And if you're getting into the WNBA mix, there are 12 teams and there are 12 roster spots. That is how tough it is to make one of these teams. We've seen first-round picks get cut. So just because she was a second-round pick and early at that was no guarantee that she'd be on a team, let alone the team that is coming off a championship trophy. How excited are you guys to be watching her this year?
I mean, I just think it's so impressive that she made that roster. Like you said, no guarantees in the WNBA. I saw a stat from On3 yesterday saying that out of the second and third round picks in the last 3 years in the WNBA draft, only like 25% of them have made WNBA rosters.
Wow.
So
You've been a stat machine today. I'm loving it.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know why. Her and Katie Martin, who was from Iowa, who was drafted after her by the Aces, both made the roster as rookies, and I think it's just going to be so exciting to watch her and the 2-time reigning national champs. I mean, this is a team in the WNBA that people watch and look for, and so I'm so excited to see her really get her moment.
And I do feel like Martin was getting a lot of the social media attention on some of the bigger platforms, which sort of aligns with what we've seen, where sometimes I feel like Dyaisha Fair on the national stage, as far as from a media standpoint, gets snubbed. But I want her and everyone who listens to know this. It's like she to me feels like the pride of Syracuse right now.
Yeah.
She feels like everyone's daughter and granddaughter who we all just want to, or friend or sister who we just want to see succeed, you know? And I think that her being able to just continue on now and being able to have that accomplishment, it's like you just have that feeling like this is just the beginning for her of a much longer legacy that is going to be created by her. I feel like there's a mural incoming of her in Syracuse, you
Love
know,
that.
20 to 30 years from now, honestly.
I mean, Dyaisha's whole career, her whole story and journey has been like an uphill climb, right? Just like her size, where she came from, like her, you know, starting at Buffalo, coming to Syracuse. So it's just another time that she like defied the odds, and I'm so excited to watch her.
And she's taking on the Phoenix Mercury tonight. We're recording this Tuesday, so that'll be a late game. But it's on ESPN2. It's on ESPN Plus. It's on Disney Plus. There's opportunities for people to watch, and part of that's the Caitlin Clark effect and just the women's game growing. And it's an amazing thing because it gives accessibility to people in Syracuse to be able to watch someone that's playing for a team in Las Vegas. She's also taking on the Sparks, I believe, on Saturday. So that'll be your next opportunity to watch Dyaisha Fair in the WNBA. That's it for the Orange Zone. Ashley Wenskoski, Samantha Croston, Rachel Culver. I'm Tommy Sladek.
Dichotomy.
We're out of here.
Hippopotamy.
Like and
Bye
subscribe.
now.
We're back next week. Peace.